Hi students, today's video is going to be on stem changing verbs, or in other words, boot verbs. You'll find out a little bit later in the video why I call these boot verbs, but this might be an easier way to remember what these verbs are. You can find a notes sheet to accompany this video on page 14 of your packet. Please make sure that you are following along and that you do take good notes and that you come to class prepared with any questions that you have. So to start, we need to figure out what a stem is if we want to know what a stem change is. So some verbs have a stem change, and a stem is the part of the verb that is left after you take off the AR, ER, or IR, so the ending. So for example, if we look down here at the verb cerrar, our ending is AR. So once we take that off, we're left with our stem, which is ser. And actually this includes this second R. Ser, that's our stem. So stem changing verbs, although the stem changes, they have regular AR, ER, and IR endings. So the normal O, as, a, amos, ais, and an, and O, es, e, hemos, eis, and in. So for E to IE stem changing verbs, the E of the stem will change to an IE in all forms except for the nosotros form and the vosotros form. So again, if we take a look down here at the verb cerrar, we've already taken off our AR, so we've taken off our ending, and we know that we have to add a regular ending. But what's going to change here is this E that I have underlined. So when we conjugate it, that E will change to an IE in all forms except for nosotros and vosotros. So some other verbs that we've already learned that are from this unit, we have cerrar, to close, entender, to understand, we have pensar, to think, empezar, to begin or to start, and preferir, to prefer. So with stem changing verbs, if there happen to be two E's, it's going to be the next to last syllable that changes. So for example, preferir, there are two E's, but this is the second to last syllable, so that's the E that we're going to change to an IE. So let's do an example. We have the verb querer, and the verb querer means to want. And this is one of our stem changing or our boot verbs. So here's when the boot comes into play. So remember when I said that all forms except for the nosotros and the vosotros forms are going to stem change? Well, if we draw around all of the forms that will change, we get kind of a form of a boot. So we know that all of the forms inside this boot are going to have this stem change, this E to IE. The forms outside of the boot will not have that same change. So let's go ahead and start conjugating querer. So first thing, we have to know the ending, and the ending is ER. So this verb is going to have the regular ER endings. So O, es, e, hemos, eis, and in. And then let's start with the two forms that are normal. So we're going to take the normal stem and we're just going to add it to the ending. So queremos and queréis. Now the forms inside the boot, they're going to be a little bit different because this E here in the stem is going to change to an IE. So here's what I mean. For the yo form, instead of saying quiero, like we normally would with a regular verb, we're going to say quiero. So that E changed to an IE. The to form will be the same. Quieres. Él, ella, usted quiere. Again, these forms are inside the boot, so the E changes to an IE. And then finally, we have quieren. The E changed to an IE. So if you can just remember to draw your boot, all forms inside the boot are going to have a stem change. And the most difficult part about this really is just remembering what verbs are boot verbs. So you'll want to make sure that you hold on to this packet and you make sure that you keep this note sheet so when it comes time to study, you have this available. So one thing that is more of a general concept, remember that if you have two verbs directly in a row, that only the first verb is conjugated. So the first verb will be conjugated, and the second one stays in its infinitive form. So for example, I want to use the computer, that's 2 verbs. You'll only conjugate the first verb. But then in one such as they close the door, we only have 1 verb, so you just conjugate your verb and finish your sentence. So let's do number 1 together. We're going to start with I want. And so we know this verb here, querer, means to want. So we're going to put it in the yo form. The yo form is inside our boot, so we are going to have a stem change. So yo quiero, E to IE, regular yo form ending for an ER verb. And then we have the verb to use, which we're not going to conjugate because we already have a verb directly in front of it. So yo quiero usar la computadora. So what I would like you to do is complete numbers 2 through 5, translate them into Spanish. These are all boot verbs, so make sure that you're cautious to change your E to an IE in all of the forms within the boot.